A hospital built to heal instead became a factory of vanishing lives, records erased, entire corridors rumoured to swallow the dying, even a 500-foot tunnel etched with the words, "We are still here." Waverly Hills wasn't just haunted by disease, it kept disappearing its own patients. Why did official ledgers vanish along with the bodies? And what secrets echo through those hollow limestone hills? This story begins where the evidence first disappears. Mist clings to the ridge southwest of Louisville, where Waverly Hills Sanatorium rises above the Ohio River. The site was chosen for its height and isolation, a place where doctors once believed clean air and sunlight could stop the spread of tuberculosis. But beneath the surface, the land tells a different story. Geological surveys reveal a labyrinth of hollow limestone channels, karst formations that run deep below the hill. These natural cavities twist through the bedrock, shaping the ground above and creating pockets where sound and magnetic fields behave unpredictably. Early construction crews in 1910 described hearing a constant hum, a vibration that seemed to come from inside the stone itself. Some refused to work after dark, claiming the unfinished building whispered and sighed through its empty halls. The original sanatorium opened as a modest two-story structure, built to treat just a few dozen patients. But tuberculosis swept through Kentucky year after year, and the need for beds grew desperate. By 1926, the hospital had transformed into a 5-story Gothic fortress, its concrete wings curving in a semicircle to catch as much sunlight and breeze as possible. The design was both practical and imposing. Every patient room opened onto wide verandas, yet the corridors stretched on in confusing, self-contained loops. The building became its own world, with gardens, livestock pens, a water treatment plant, even its own postal code. Everything a small town needed sealed off from the city below. Architectural drawings from the 1920s show an obsessive focus on airflow and isolation. The walls were thick, the windows oversized, the wards arranged to prevent cross-contamination. But the same features that protected against disease also fostered a sense of separation, from the outside and from each other. Maintenance logs from those early years mentioned doors that refused to stay open, rooms where the air felt heavier, pressure building in the walls. Staff and patients alike began to notice the strange acoustics, the way footsteps echoed and voices carried in unexpected directions. Even on the hottest summer days, the upper floors stayed cool, the air tinged with the faint mineral scent of limestone. Over time, stories of the building's unnatural resonance grew. Locals called it the Hill of Whispers. They believed the sanatorium itself was alive, shaped by the land beneath, a place where the line between structure and environment had blurred. Long before the hospital's records began to vanish, the Hill had learned how to keep its secrets. Official records claim that Waverly Hills lost around 6,000 lives to tuberculosis, but the truth is buried in a tangle of missing documents and whispered numbers. The earliest patient ledgers, covering the years 1914 to 1933, are gone, replaced in the archives by blank pages stamped "Filed elsewhere." County archivists searching for answers in the 1970s found only scattered death certificates and faded burial permits. There is no master list, no definitive roll call of the dead. One archivist recalling the search described the silence in the files as a gap you can feel, not just see. Oral histories from former nurses and orderlies suggest the real toll was far higher than the official count. Some remember weeks when the morgue overflowed and bodies were moved at night to avoid frightening the living. Hidden beneath the main building, a concrete tunnel stretches 500 feet down the hillside. Staff called it the body chute. Originally built for moving supplies, the tunnel became a silent corridor for the dead. Carts rolled along metal tracks, carrying shrouded patients from the wards to waiting hearses at the railway spur below. The tunnel's purpose was practical, but its effect was psychological. Death moved underground, out of sight, as if the hospital could will it away. No original construction log for the tunnel survives. What remains are fragments, a utility bill for high-voltage lighting, a maintenance note about condensation forming on the walls, and the recollections of those who walked its length. In 1961, after the hospital closed, a caretaker found a message scratched into the concrete near the tunnel's midpoint. The words read, "We are still here." The missing ledgers and the hidden corridor tell the same story. Lives lost, erased from paper, carried out through a passage built to keep secrets. The hospital's silence is both archival and physical, a gap in the record, and a tunnel beneath the hill that echoes with the memory of the uncounted dead. Blueprints from 1924, drawn in heavy black ink, show a sixth-floor annex stretching east from the main hospital block, labelled for surgical labs and recovery wards. Yet no photograph, no aerial survey from the decades that followed, ever caught that wing in daylight. By the late 1940s, only a concrete foundation juts from the grass where the annex should have stood. The hospital's expansion ledgers, pages still held in county archives, list funds spent on eastward extension, but never clarify if those rooms were built, demolished, or quietly erased. An architectural historian from the University of Louisville, standing amid the overgrown footings, once described the site as a place where the building's memory outlasts its flesh. She points to the way certain corridors end abruptly, and to bricked-over doorways that lead nowhere. Oral histories from former staff collected in the 1950s mention lights flickering at night in the empty air above the fifth story, as if the building remembered its own missing rooms. Rumours spread that the annex was more than just a surgical wing, that it housed experimental treatments, collapsing lungs or bathing tissue in ultraviolet light through quartz tubes. No patient roster from those supposed trials survives. Room 502, meanwhile, became infamous for tragedy. Local legend tells of a head nurse found hanged in 1928 and another staff death in 1932, both said to be suicides. Yet exhaustive searches of Jefferson County coroner logs turn up nothing. The elevator shaft outside 502 bears scars, bullet holes, scorched concrete, evidence of violence, but not the kind described in ghost stories. Hospital board minutes from 1932 mention the abrupt removal of staff for unapproved procedures, then fall silent. Whether the deaths were covered up or never happened at all, the records offer only more blank pages. In Waverley's architecture and its archives, whole rooms and whole people seem to have vanished, leaving only rumours and scars behind. In 1936, a single line in an internal memo introduced the isolation floor, a ward that never appeared on public blueprints and whose entrance by the 1950s was welded shut. Maintenance logs from the hospital's final years show power and steam routed to these sealed rooms, even as the rest of the building stood empty. A retired engineer who walked the length of the upper mechanical corridors in the early 1960s spoke of hearing machinery humming behind concrete in spaces not mapped on any plan. He claimed the walls vibrated faintly, as if something inside was still running long after the patients were gone. By the late 1970s, attempts to recover the hospital's records led only to dead ends. In 1980, a Kentucky Health Board memo referenced new restrictions on Waverley's case files under Directive 219-B. 14 years later, historians requesting those archives found every file marked "Destroyed, 1979." The official explanation cited routine purges, but the timing and scope left researchers questioning what was meant to be forgotten. Physical evidence beneath the building tells a different story. Blueprints donated to the county in 1986 show tunnels that don't align with any visible structure above. In 2002, a ground-penetrating radar operator detected a hollow chamber, metal-lined and 20 meters deep, beneath the north patio. No record of its construction, no entry in the building's permits. The chamber's temperature read colder than the surrounding earth, and instruments failed repeatedly inside the anomaly. A seismologist studying microtremor data in 2015 tracked a regular pulse every 17 minutes, radiating from beneath the old tunnel. The pattern matched no known geological or mechanical source. Modern sensors, archival gaps, and the testimony of those who once kept the lights on all converge on the same unresolved precipice. At Waverley Hills, the boundary between what was built and what was buried has never been clear. Official records list around 6,000 deaths at Waverly Hills Sanatorium, yet no complete patient ledger from 1914 to 1933 survives. Blueprints from 1924 show a sixth-floor annex that vanished without documented demolition, while hospital files and internal memos referenced sealed wards and missing case records. After the hospital closed in 1961, state archives marked all Waverly files as destroyed, 1979, but a 1980 directive confirmed new restrictions on remaining documents. Modern ground-penetrating radar found a metal-lined chamber under the north patio, and seismographs detected unexplained tremors every 17 minutes beneath the old body chute. Despite decades of investigation, key details, like the purpose of the missing wing, the fate of the isolation floor, and the reason for classified files, remain unresolved. Today, Waverly Hills stands as evidence of how architecture, medicine, and secrecy can erase as much as they reveal. What endures is not just the building, but the persistent absence in its records and walls.